Hello, friends, how are you all? I hope you're doing great and taking care of yourself. Today, we are going to talk about another important concept in our journey of Dockers for beginners, and it is none other than the Docker architecture. But before we get into that, let me have a quick recap of what we have learned until now. So, in my previous video, we have talked about what is virtual machine and what are containers, which we call as Docker. As you can see on the screen, a virtual machine, in a very simple term, if anyone asks you, is nothing but an apartment in the building, which is nothing. You have your host operating system, you have a software called as a hypervisor where you install the guest operating system, which can be Linux, Windows, and then you're having your application running on that. Whereas on the other hand side of the container, if you see, we have just a Docker engine, or call it as a container engine, and then you have a container where your application and the dependencies related to it, binaries, libraries, are packed, and you're running your Node.js application as you see on the screen. In short, the virtual machine is nothing but a full computer where it has its own kernel, CPU, memory, drivers, etc. But the container uses your host memory, which is kernel, CPU, etc., which is on your own server or a laptop, and then it basically executes your application. So that's why the containers are the lightweight, because it's not the full computer like the virtual machines. So as we can see from the definition perspective, the virtual machines are full computer inside your computer, which includes the full OS, which is called as a guest operating OS, which can be Linux, Windows, Ubuntu, etc. And then this guest operating system will have kernel, RAM, CPU, drivers, etc. in it, and then you will be running your application. So that's a quick recap of our what we have learned: containers versus virtual machines. Now, without further delay, let's get into the Docker architecture. So, friends, let's together learn what is Docker architecture. As you can see on the screen, the Docker architecture consists of three important components: a Docker client, Docker host, and Docker registry. Consider a simple example of Amazon. I log into the computer or a laptop and I type amazon.com. Okay, now as soon as I type amazon.com, I look for a product and now I place that order. Now that order goes to the uh, Amazon warehouse. In our case, that is nothing but a Docker host, and the placing of the order in our case is nothing but an interacting or executing a command, writing a command: docker pull, docker build, docker run, docker push. Now it goes to Docker Daemon, and Docker Daemon will basically execute that task accordingly. In our Amazon example, Docker daemon is nothing but an Amazon warehouse and Amazon warehouse manager, whose responsibility is to make sure the order which you have placed is executed. That means it is mm, grabbed, packaged, and finally delivered to you. But but there the catch here is, if that product is not in the warehouse, it will basically connect with different vendors, which in this diagram is nothing but a Docker registry, and it will grab that product and finally packaged it and delivered to you. So that's considering the Docker host. In our case, is if the image is not found locally, it will basically connect to the Docker registry hub and get that image finally it will basically create a container and run that image in the inside. So for that you will use the docker run command. As you can see on the screen, I have basically done a docker pull to showcase that I'm getting the image from the registry hub, and finally I'm creating a docker container using a docker run command. There can be a case that where you have your own image, okay, and now you want to push that to a registry. So that's where you will basically execute from the docker client call as a docker push command. It will go to the docker daemon, and then finally docker daemon will push that image to the registry. Now considering this has an whole example, here is I'm a vendor and I want to sell my product on the amazon.com. So for that I will basically register it and make that make that product available on the Amazon site. So I'm basically pushing that on the Amazon website through some uh, through Amazon site, right? So that's a simple example. Now to sum up all these things, so remember docker client is used to run the command. Okay, the docker client then sends that command to the docker daemon, and then docker daemon executes that command. That it also is responsible to check whether I have that image or on my local drive to run to create a container and run that application inside. If not, then it goes and pulls from the registry. So in and all, the docker daemon is very important. It helps you to stop the container, run the container, build the image, and as well as push the image from the registry, as well as pull the image from the docker registry. I hope you got an understanding in simple words what is docker architecture. If anyone asks you what is docker architecture in simple words, you should be able to say that docker architecture consists of docker client, docker daemon, docker registry, and inside it has different objects like docker container, docker images, etc. It helps you to build your application in an isolated environment, which is with the help of containers. I hope you got an understanding by now, and if you feel this has really helped you, do not forget to hit and subscribe to my YouTube channel and share with your colleagues who are looking to study the Docker or step into the Docker world. Until then, take care. Bye bye.